Hey, everybody. Let's kick off another episode.
Howdy.
Cheers. Mafk.
Brain.
I love the. So, here's something a little different. I'm going to bring my mic up, so I apologize for anything that might happen in this. We're not going to start over. We're just going to do this. James has a tall boy over there, and since we don't have any paid sponsorships, he used this weird Monster Energy sleeve for it, which, I mean, I guess...
Well, Monster is spelled Monstrr.
Yeah, so on Amazon, you can buy these in 12 and 24 16-ounce can size, and there's all kinds of knockoffs. And if we ever discreetly want to drink before we close the shop, this is what we do. And no shame in our game. So it's rare, but it happens occasionally. So let's just get right into, what came in this last week that was interesting. One of the things that stands out to me is we got the HasLab Ahsoka's Ghost ship. Out of all the HasLab stuff we've had, especially the big ones, what we had last year, like 4 Galactuses or something like that. We've had a couple others.
This is a big one, though.
That thing was a beast.
It's
and
huge.
It was heavy. It was heavy.
And it was sealed, so we didn't actually get to see the ship itself.
No. But we had the inner shipper, the outer shipper, and it lasted in the store for all of like 3 hours, I think.
Something like that,
Somebody came in with a good trade. But that was one of those trades now, a week later, I'm looking back and I'm like, was that a good choice? Because I've had 3 people ask about that thing. And nobody's bought
the stuff that
got traded. I mean, they're cool items. We've had them before. They will sell,
and they have sold.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But the Batmobile this time, it was that deluxe model with the figs and the
spotlight.
The bat signal.
Yep. And that one I don't believe we've had.
We've had the fancy Batmobiles, but this one is the upgrade version, and I believe that's the first time.
Yeah. And part of the problem might be like the Batwing, just alone on that, with it being sealed. I think some people get sticker shock. I think the last 2 we had on that, they were open.
Well,
So it reduces the price, quite a bit, and it helps them move. And that's just one of those items that's so big that you really got to have some dedicated space.
Well, I mean, same problem with the Ghost. There's only so many customers for something like that, and that it's not that ship or this ship. It's any of them that are that kind of size. The stuff I've heard about coming out, or they're even talking about for the Joe Classified line. It's all huge.
They're big. They're big boys, and I mean that's why we ended up with all those Galactuses over the last year and a half. It was because people bought them, and then when they got them, they were like,
"Oh no,
I didn't expect it to be this big." Well, it's huge.
Look, well, no, it showed up, and their wife said,
Yeah. I only spent $100, honey, I swear. And then, let's see, another thing that we had a couple, I think they were just at a business next door or something, and came in and talked to you about some comic books that they had. And they kind of misunderstood the conversation that you had with them. They said it was a lot of, 60s stuff, but they did mention that it was a lot of Funny Animal. And from the conversation that, basically a lot of that Funny Animal stuff, we just can't move very quickly. Right. It doesn't hold a lot of value, depending on what it is. And so they went through all the comics and just brought us like 8 superhero-related titles, which also makes me wonder, well, are there war books in there too?
Well, they since did come back on your day off.
Did they?
But it was all Archie's.
See, that's not what they told us either.
And it was just a small stack.
From what they were saying, there's hundreds of them. I don't know why they're bringing small stacks in.
Got me on that.
I mean, they can keep making trips back. That's fine. But
that's what they want.
So it was, 8 to 10 beater Silver Age books, nothing of real note except Superman's Girlfriend number 70, the first Silver Age Catwoman.
Well, more often than not, we see a Lois Lane book and go,
yeah.
Because Superman doesn't sell. Lois Lane sells even worse, really.
Right. But if you got those keys,
right,
somebody's going to want that. That white cover, that's a tough book. It's dirty, of course. Got a lot of color rub and dinginess to it. I'm going to see what we can do to gussy it up a little bit and, get it out. I'm sure somebody is definitely going to want that book.
It'll sell fast.
Yeah,
it's a Catwoman cover.
Right.
It's not just an internal appearance. It's the cover.
So then the other thing, we had, I don't know, I want to say it was maybe 16, 18, might have been more than that, Activision player patches. So these are the patches from the 80s when you would play these Activision games. If you beat a certain score and were able to take a picture somehow of the screen, you could send that to Activision and they would give you an achievement patch. And
Mom would have to iron it on.
Yeah. So these were all unused. I've had just a couple of these patches over the years, and they're generally, dingy, dirty, don't have the almost like wax paper that's over the adhesive on the back. A lot of that would be missing. But these were beautiful. And what's even crazier about it is every one of them at least had the instruction letter on how to do it, the little blue card sheet with the instructions. And then he had essentially, they would send, when they sent you the patch, they would send you like a congratulations letter,
right,
for achieving this. So we had all of that together.
Well, considering that they saved everything that came in the envelope when it showed up, I'm surprised they didn't save the envelope, to be honest.
So what's funny is, luckily I caught it when this couple brought this stuff in. They also brought it in with 100 and roughly 50 Atari games, a console. I'm going to come back to that too, because there's a really neat point about this.
It was 2,600 and 5,200 games. It was not just for the early Atari.
There was some ColecoVision in there and a couple of other things, and he had essentially like a recipe box that had the tabs in it with all the manuals still. And
considering just the sheer amount of those patches, somebody was playing hard.
He was playing
that stuff.
He was playing. And we're going to get into a little bit more on that here in a second, like how hard this guy was committed to this stuff. So they bring in the boxes, and the wife is kind of, they set them on the counter, and the wife's kind of going through, and she sees these envelopes sitting in there, and she pulls them. I think she just thought they were mail that like shouldn't have been in her, old mail junk or something. And luckily, I saw in the upper left-hand corner of one of the envelopes Activision. And I was like, oh, no. That goes with this, please. Because we would have lost all those letters and the patches. She grabbed both of the envelopes. And so luckily, I caught that, and we were able to make a purchase on this. So coming back to the seller himself, or the collector, he had an Atari joystick that he modified. It had a button installed on the front of the base, so an additional button. And when Scott asked him, like, whoa, what is this? And he said, well, I can't remember what game it was, but it's some spaceship or war game, flying game. And he said, well, in the game, if you were shooting, you couldn't have your shield up. You had to hold the button for your shield to be up. Somehow this guy figured out, he added the second button so he could have his shield on and shoot at the same time.
Yeah, well, on an Atari, the way that's wired with only one button, it would have had to have been wired in with the same button. So somehow that's working by holding down a button and...
Or he wired it, or I don't know. Like, I haven't looked at it.
There's no other input.
Yeah, that's true.
Another button. So it must somehow have worked to hold it down, have the shield, and then hit the second button.
Yeah.
Which, you would think holding down one button is throwing a solid signal that wouldn't be interrupted, and the second button wouldn't have anything to do with it. So how this guy figured this out,
my guess, I did not ask, but like kind of thinking back, I was like, this guy was an engineer or a computer guy early in the 80s and went hard into these games and just figured out to make them do what he wanted. Another thing he had that we did not take, they asked, this was pretty cool. Like, I thought it was cool, but we had no use for it. He built a game cabinet, and it was essentially like a 2x12 box with 2 cabinet doors. It would open from either side, and one side you would open it, and it just was sectioned out for cartridges to sit. It was on casters, so then you could spin it around and you'd open the other side, and that would be where he would put consoles and stuff like that. And he even had like bigger sections for bigger controllers to sit in, because one of the great things that did come in with that was the Tron controller. And I don't know, man, that might go home with me. Nothing Tron survives in this shop.
If you're going to take that, then you got to take a 2600 and
no, I don't.
Have the game too. You got to play it, son.
No, because I have nightmares to this day, PTSD of that game. That game, I remember going, I can't remember. There is a place down in Lafayette Square. It is now Square One Brewing. And that used to be started with a C, I believe, a restaurant back in the 80s. And, same setup almost. You walk in and there's a bar with some seating, and then they had a Tron arcade game. And once or twice a month, me and my parents would go there for brunch on Sundays. And my dad always knew the first question on the car ride there.
Can I have a quarter?
Are we going to play Tron? Are we going to play Tron? That had the rollerball on it and all that stuff. And but oh my gosh, like everybody complains about E.T. Like that game was tough for me.
E.T. sucked.
E.T. did suck.
E.T. sucked.
So we also have soon here we'll be getting out, by the time this gets released, they'll be out. We'll have probably the largest selection of Atari games we've had at one shot.
That's probably true.
Yeah. We've had big batches, but never 150 plus games.
Well, and what we've tended to do is bundle a lot of games with a console and just sell it all at once. Yep. So the games weren't necessarily available on a one-to-one basis with the customers. I mean,
we do that with a lot of our consoles. James came up with the idea a couple of years back on the stickers on the box that we put our cleaned and tested consoles in for sale. Crappy games included. We just throw a couple of BS games in there so that you have a starter pack ready to go. But this one, there are some good games in there. Of course, you got the fodder that everybody has, but there's some good stuff. And what was really nice was it was really well taken care of. I'll mention Scott that works here again. He was nerding out pretty hard on that because of how well, like so many of the Activision stickers on the cartridges would just be destroyed, falling off, and discolored. There wasn't a lot of that in this collection. It was well cared for.
Well, that was back in the day where those games came in you could call it a cardboard, but almost more a paper box.
A very thin.
Nobody saved them, really. No. But they barely saved the manuals. You just had a box probably with all your cartridges in it, and they would rub together and dirt would build up and everything else. It's not like games today where they have a case and you put them away and save them. And
it's actually protected.
Yeah.
And I kind of hope the guy comes back, because he did say, he was like, I know I have more. And, he couldn't find his Intellivision or ColecoVision, but we had the controllers, but no.
The console's got to be there somewhere.
Yeah, there's no consoles. And then just as meticulous as he was with this, kind of wonder, did he flatten all the boxes and have them somewhere?
Oh, yeah.
And the problem is going to be that he's going to come back and we've sold half of it already, and then we just got a bunch of boxes, which not necessarily a bad problem to have, but it would just help with the collection on the front end. So with that, I think we have not, we've gone down memory lane a little bit with like toys and comic books and comic shops. We haven't gone down memory lane with video games for ourselves. Like so what's your earliest memory of playing a video game?
We got a 2600 for Christmas. And I remember my grandma saying, I want to play Pac-Man. Those kids at Walmart never let me have a turn.
That's great.
And then, we, of course, plugged it in and do-dee-doo-doo-dee. And it's the worst version of Pac-Man anybody ever saw in their life. Visually, it was unimpressive. The audio was even less impressive. But, we did manage over time to get a good number of games. And they did improve on their software over a period of a few years, because we played Atari 2600 up to the day we got an NES.
Yeah. So for me, I remember, a 2600 for sure. And then we had the 52 that followed it, the more sleek model, the Ferrari of Atari, I guess. And I played those things up until I think it was 1991. I finally got a Nintendo.
No,
kind of
late in the game for an NES.
Kind of. We were broke, man. We just didn't have that. And when I say kind of, I got a Nintendo. I did get a Nintendo, but here's the story. My mom and her then husband essentially furnished their whole home through Rent-A-Center. And I think it was the only place, I could be wrong, but at the time, Rent-A-Center would sell a Sharp TV, Sharp brand, with a Nintendo built in. It was black, and then it had like 4 feet that stuck out. I thought it was the coolest thing because everybody else's NES controllers were gray and black. Mine were black. They were like murdered out. They were dope. And here's the kind of part. They bought the TV and they were like, oh, we got the Nintendo for you. That daggum TV was in their bedroom. So I had to play during the day when they weren't in there. And, a few years later it migrated into my room and, got used way more. But I was so far behind on Nintendo. Like all my friends had it. I had a friend that was much better off than we were.
Sure.
And I would go to his house, and if he didn't already have the game system, this is a throwback right here. We would go to Blockbuster and rent the system. And you remember they would come in those big black plastic suitcases, and you could take it home, and you'd rent your games and you could play. And it was, at one point, I guess they were weekly rentals, and you could just keep renewing it,
right?
Something like that. And man, I love going to Danny's house because we would just play everything. He'd eventually fall asleep, and I'd still just be like, well, I'm going to play this system now. That was my first experience with the Genesis when the SNES came out. That was all at his house. I never owned a SNES. I never, the regular Nintendo, where it kind of stopped for me as a kid. Nothing else came my way.
Same here. The next console I bought was a PS1 Slim. It was even late in the PS1 era, and it wasn't that I wasn't gaming during that whole time, but I was doing it on a PC.
Oh, see, we've talked about this before. I didn't own my first PC until 2003, so I didn't know anything about that stuff. And then that's right around the same time, right around 03, 04, when my youngest was born. I kind of got a hair and was like, I want a video game. I want to play some games. So then I had a TV that had a 5200 hooked up to it, the original Xbox, a PS1, a GameCube, and I think that was it. I had 4 or 5 systems hooked up.
For that era, you were all in.
I was balling. And I played. It was kind of like I got sucked back into it. I was never when we get to that phase. I I'm still to this day, I'm not like a first person shooter kind of guy. I don't like those games.
Doom happened.
Oh, see, I
still play it.
2 joysticks trying to go around, like not Doom, but like Splinter Cell. I tried Splinter Cell. I did kind of like it. I'd say the one first-person shooter game I really got into was Hitman. Yeah.
Well, see, I learned on keyboard and mouse.
Yeah. Well, again,
it's a real different way of going.
Keep
after
flexing
it.
on me, bro. Gosh.
You know that, but I mean, it to this day, playing Doom with a controller almost seems weird. It's there's so many pluses to it.
Yeah.
But it's not native.
Mm. And that was, I think we talked about something like this last week. It's just, I have good hand-to-eye coordination, but I don't know what side of my brain doesn't work when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, I got to move the camera and my guy, and I got to do this and that, and like, it doesn't work. So, what was your favorite game on Atari?
Ooh, tough call. What I probably played the most is a half and half Pitfall, the first one, and Moon Patrol.
Pitfall and Galaga.
Yeah, I didn't have Galaga.
Yeah, I'd say
I probably would have played it a lot more.
My 2 biggest ones, and then Nintendo. Ooh, maybe Contra was up there for me.
Tyson's Punch-Out.
Oh yes, the original with Mike in it. Yeah. Before they basically wouldn't renew, the rights to his likeness. I did play the heck out of that as well.
Then, Spy Hunter I had on NES.
Yes, I did love Spy Hunter,
and it is considering what I was used to on the 2600 for arcade ports that were all terrible. Spy Hunter on the NES was not that far off for me.
That one translated well, and so did Cruisin' USA, I think was one.
Yeah, I didn't have that game.
I love that because you could drive a Testarossa. I mean, we were watching Miami Vice and crap, so that stuff was awesome. One that did not translate for me, like I loved. I was in a bowling league. I don't even know if this bowling alley is still around down in my old neighborhood where I grew up. It was Western Bowl. And at least twice a week I was there to bowl. And they had the stand-up Paperboy with the handlebars and the pad on it and everything that you could play. And I loved it. And then when I got it on Nintendo, I mean, I probably threw my controller every time.
The game was infuriating.
It was so maddening, man. No wonder our generation is the way we are.
Manic.
Video games made us manic.
Well, Nintendo games were hard because a lot of them were built like an arcade game in that they would kill you and then it would say game over and you start over again, which, in an arcade that meant you put in another quarter. Right. And we
already paid for the game.
Yeah, don't
make it a little more useful for me.
Continue, maybe press start to, the games that said press start to continue and actually let you pick up where you left off were an incredible blessing because, I think about the original set of black box Nintendo games before there was 100 different companies licensing and making games. There was that original set of games, and if you had a Nintendo kind of early on, that was a chunk of what was available. So I had Kung Fu.
Oh yeah,
and I played that to death, but it was infuriating.
Yeah.
I mean, just maddening.
Well, and I think I went through a phase so my parents were divorced, and my dad's I had the Atari still. I had both of them. We held on to those, and then at my mom's I had that Nintendo, and I remember being at my mom's and in the beginning having 3 games and just getting so mad and trying to nope, this game sucks. I'm going you just get to a point one of them was definitely with that Sharp they did the same thing. You got Mario Bros and Duck Hunter to play with it. And, Mario was one of those games. At first Mario, I was so good up until a certain point, and then I'd get to a boss and just could not get past it. And just, I would lose my mind. And then probably Paperboy, I do believe, was another one.
I don't know why I didn't ever ask for a Game Genie.
Yeah, I don't even know that I knew it was really. I'm sure I did. I don't. It just.
Well, I mean, as many comic books as we read back then, we saw the ads, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then, fast forwarding back to an adult, or young adult, I think out of all of those, I mean, I had fun with PlayStation and Xbox, but I think GameCube was the one that really kind of started to suck me into playing again.
Yeah.
And it was like my favorite game on there was Mario Brothers. We just sold it the other day. Super Mario Star Sunshine, or the beach one. It's a lot of.
I don't know those games that well.
Oh man, I played that thing.
I never had a GameCube.
I was probably threatened with separation for how much, by my ex my now ex from that time, just how much I played that thing.
Yeah.
I was hooked on it. It was fun. It was such a fun game. And of course, like I said, we put out a batch of GameCube games the other day for sale. That was the first one to go. Like,
sure.
Somebody beeline straight in here to get it.
The first party stuff always, But gosh, during that era, I did have that PS1. I was late to the game, and I wasn't buying new games. I was going to what was called Game Exchange on Lindbergh, close to Lee May Ferry, and buying them used because people were trading them in. And Tony Hawk sucked me in, and then I got when I got Tony Hawk 2, both of them. I mean, I had other games. I didn't play them, and it's why, because every time I turned that thing on, I wanted to play Tony Hawk.
I did play Tony Hawk like a ton, and then there was a snowboarding game. I can't recall. I was talking to a customer about it the other day in here, and boy, that was on PlayStation. That sucked me in real hard too. Gosh, I can't remember.
SSX.
That was one of them. That might be the one I was talking about. Maybe. And then, all right, so like now, so here's the funny thing. How many consoles do you have hooked up at home? Yeah, see, we have problems.
Well, I have a 17-year-old boy that's really into it too, so right now...
So that's just an excuse for you to be into it more too.
Well, it's an excuse to have more consoles hooked up.
Right, that's what I mean.
So, but yeah, on 2 televisions, if we add it all up, there's a Wii hooked up there in the front room. The fully backwards PS3 is hooked up in there. He's got the hookups for a Switch in there, and then also in the other room, OG Xbox 360, PS4, and Switch, and then that's also where I have the PC hooked up with like 10,000 retro games.
The emulator.
So I mean, it's almost like having another 15 consoles hooked up, probably.
Yeah.
But actual consoles hooked up right now that you can just turn on and play, 6, maybe 7. I might be forgetting something.
So I have an Xbox One. My wife finally disconnected from our living room maybe a year ago or more, because I just never turned it on no more. And I mean, that system is so frustrating because you put a disc in and then it might be 45 minutes to an hour before you can actually play it. And then, space is always an issue. Like, well, what game do I want to delete to play this new game? And then we have a Switch OLED. I swapped out when we got an OLED sold to us. I swapped out my old OG Switch. I guess OG is what we can use now for that. And I think my wife played Animal Crossing like religiously for a few months, and it's just sat. And I am one of those suckers. I am paying for the Nintendo Pass. And we're not utilizing it at all. And then, then in my basement, it was in my living room, but I took it down to the fun room, and I have, the extremely nice PC that you built the emulator on for me. that I probably used 4 times, and I don't even think I've turned it on in 2 years.
Man.
And it's at least a year and a half. And it would get frustrating for me. The problem with the emulators, for me, they're fine until you get to disc-based games. Like,
sure.
Some of them just don't function properly on that system.
Well, and then there's some farting around you can do within RetroArch, because there's different emulators for
each
a system, and sometimes if you switch to a different emulator, it'll run a given game better than the other one did. Right. And N64 even is an example of that. I've run into it where I've probably got 3 different N64 emulators built into that thing, and the game will freeze and fritz on one. I switch to the second one, it does it again. I switch to the third one, and then we play.
See, that's where I start to get lost. I'm like, if I have to keep doing this, I just start to lose interest. I just want to sit down and play. Well, and maybe I should be using that Nintendo Pass so I can do that.
Well, if you're paying for it, but I mean, if you're cheating, you got to expect a little give there.
Right.
And once you figure out how to switch the cores, it goes real simple. It's you just
it. And to be honest with you now, it's been so long, I can't even remember if I turned it on how I would do that, because it's just, I forgot.
But you never used RetroArch that much.
No. All right, so that's retro video games, I guess, for us. I don't know.
Well, we've played a few.
Yeah. I mean, I do not miss the hand cramps that would come from Atari.
Atari joysticks.
Oh my gosh. And I mean, just torquing that thing down.
Well, did you ever have the rubber overlay pull away from the joystick?
Oh, yeah.
And then never quite get it back on?
Yeah.
So as you're playing?
Yeah, I did. And then I did eventually get almost like the Tron one, that bigger scale.
Oh, yeah, I did. I had one that had a button down there and then
a trigger button.
And one on top. They were all the same button.
Right.
But there was 3 of them on there, and it didn't stick this far out. It stuck this far out, and it was made to fit in the palm of your hand better.
Ergonomically
correct. Yeah. And it had suction cups on the bottom, so you could stick it to the table.
Yeah, so you can just sit there.
It was more like, honestly, in some cases, even better than an arcade joystick, because they were always, in my mind, too short.
A lot of the cases, they were. And just that little ball in your hand.
When they make extensions for those things now for the people that buy and collect and rebuild old arcade games, they make extensions so you can get your ball out further.
So speaking of that, back to that Atari collection, one of the things that came in were extensions for joysticks with it, still in package. They kind of look like a chess piece, like the pawn, and you would stick it so that you could control it better.
I don't know if I remember those being a thing back in the
day. I did not know about it, but of course, here we go back to Scott. Shout out Scott. We're going to have him on here eventually. He knew exactly what it was. Of course, nerd. Anyway, I'm just doing that because I know Scott watches this, so I want to rib him a little bit. But he knew exactly what they were, and it was the first time I had ever seen them. And I'm like, why wasn't more of this being done? Why were they building these video games to torture us? Like, it's probably why so many people have what do you call it? The hand.
An exerciser?
No, the surgery people got to have.
Oh, carpal tunnel.
Carpal tunnel. Or trigger finger. I get it in my left hand all the time now. In the last year, where my hand just locks up, and it's trigger finger, which is a much easier surgery. I'm not looking forward to. I hope that I can fight that off for quite a while, but that's an outpatient thing. They don't even put you under. They just snip it, and they want you to move your hand while they're doing it. My barber just had it done. Still sounds horrendous, but he said it was pretty painless. Wow. Sad getting old. Sad. All right,
it's not all bad.
So we're going to move on from video games, and now I'm going to go to my wonderful list of notes that I have. One thing, like, we might get into, our rants and raves, all the smoke, whatever we want to call it. It amazes me sometimes the amount of people that come in here and mistreat things, and we've touched on this. We've complained about it on these before. But what I love, like, I'm going to give an example from last week or 2 weeks ago, and a similar thing happened today, where we had a boneyard of mostly like ships, vehicles, incomplete toys. We had a table out. One of the things that was in there was just a shell of a Motu Snake Mountain. And first I heard something, those have a distinctive sound. That and Castle of Grayskull, when somebody goes to open the shell, it has a distinct sound. And right in front of where generally it's you or I are sitting, we have a monitor that we can watch. There are 18 cameras in this store, and we're watching what's going on.
Right.
And it's a regular father-son that come in here almost weekly. And the kids in there, I'm watching them on the camera just wrenching this thing open and closed. And, those clips are fragile, that keep that thing closed
they're
shut.
40 years old.
Yeah, exactly. So I go in, I'm like, hey, and I point to all the signs that say, please do not play with toys. And the dad goes, he wasn't doing that. He wasn't playing with it. So I just pointed up in the corner and I said, I saw him doing it. And I saw the dad watching him do it. So just be an adult, man. Just say sorry and stop, we won't do it again. That's aggravating. I had a kid today that was trying to open a video game case, and I saw him. He even was like, so when you have glass cases, most people might know this, but, and there's two doors, you get that.
The sliding lock.
He was taking the arm and moving it like he was going to wiggle it off or something, and drop it and get it to open. And I just kind of leaned over, because where the video game case is, we kind of have essentially what has now become a pass-through that I can just poke my head over and be like, hey, that case is locked. He was like, I wasn't touching it. And then did the same thing. I pointed up to the camera, and I was like, I saw you. I said I wasn't picking the lock. And I was like, I didn't say you were picking it. Just don't mess with it.
Yeah, no touch.
And that goes kind of, relates to a lot of things where people are always like, oh, I wasn't doing that. Yeah, you were. Just own up to it. Just be mature, be an adult, own up to it, move on. We'll move past it.
A lot of people can't do that, though. And there was, I don't think we've talked about it on any of these podcasts, but we had a younger couple in here, and I saw them roughing up our raw 50-cent books and some of the dollar stuff. And I wasn't nasty. I asked them not to do it, and I even showed an example of what was happening and how to make sure you don't do it. And almost immediately,
she went out to the car, and then he came up to ring out, and then they left. And what was weird is they've never come back, and they were in 3 times that week.
Right.
And have never come back because we said, please. It wasn't anything rude.
Right.
I was here. I heard the whole conversation. There was no aggression or anything. It was like, hey, guys, can you please be mindful of this? And I think she went outside to cry. I don't know. It was weird. It was really weird. And all right, that's a perfect segue into my next to another topic off my magical list here on my phone.
What might that be?
Well, just because it's cheap doesn't mean you can treat it
right.
And we're gonna bonk that, but that has been going on so much, and that's twofold. There's 2 parts to that. Okay, so our 50-cent books, get abused. We talked about that on a recent episode about the one guy that destroyed them, and like I got the shakes because my blood pressure went up so much, and I probably should have had you ring them out. But that happens. But we here recently had an overabundance of 2 for $1 comics. So I decided I want to make some space. We got to move these out. We made them 4 for $1. That is the same thing that happens with sales. It brings out the worst people. The worst. They come out and it's almost just like they don't care. I had somebody at one point, this goes back a couple years ago, but I'm like, hey, can you maybe take care of treat this stuff better? I still have to sell it. Uh-huh. And the guy said to me, well, they're only a quarter. And I said, are you buying them all? Mm-hmm. Because you're manhandling them, and I still have to sell them.
Yeah, you're making it hard for us to get that quarter from somebody
else. Right. Yeah, it's cheap. Doesn't mean you can destroy it.
When you bent the whole book in half, or you rip the cover,
rip the cover off because and you hear guys slamming them down, and then all this stuff, and then let's go ahead and talk about a perfect situation that happened a week and a half ago. We had 2 guys drive. I'm not going to say where they were from, but they drove 4.5 hours. Six? Is it 6? Okay. 6. From a gambling city somewhere, and drove here to go through our quarter books. One of them was perfectly fine. He didn't even he left for a while and left his buddy here. The other guy wanted to go through we were throwing him out at close. I was giving him warnings, at 6:30, I started telling him, hey, we close in a half an hour. You got to get this stuff. Throughout the whole day, I don't understand why people do this and think it's all right, not only just to the store owner, but to other collectors that might come in here throughout the day and try to shop, where he's pulling stuff out and he's got it spread over 30 boxes, 3 tables, and it's just spread.
In stacks.
In stacks. And then at one point, he's taking the books under the table, and he takes 2 and stacks them up, and then puts a 3rd one on top of it to block the whole aisle so he can flip through. So that's kind of hard to describe, vocally. But, over... where our bargain books are, it's a 3.5 foot aisle. And, with an overweight guy, I'm not shaming, I'm just saying he was a larger guy, and long box, there were people that would have to walk down the aisle, turn around, and go all the way around to get to the other end where they wanted to. And there were multiple times I went over and I said, do you need some boxes, so that you can start, gathering this? I'd like to start counting so that which is exactly what happened, so that at 10 minutes to close, I don't have to count. We had to count almost 3 long boxes of quarter books. And he said, no, I'm not there yet. So what I figured out what he was doing, he did kind of allude to it. He was pulling to see how much of a run he could get. And then if that run wasn't big enough for him, he dumped it back. Yeah, he dumped it back. So he's manhandling these books.
Well, and then
3 and 4 times.
When he dumped them back,
he made a frickin' mess.
It bent and tore up a whole bunch of books because he was just cramming it in to the closest box. He wasn't trying to put it where it would fit. He wasn't trying to break. Just banging it in, and then it's the single biggest mess anybody has made.
Oh yeah.
In our raw books since we started putting out raw books.
Yeah, and so he left, and I'm pretty sure as he was getting his last box and walking out the door, he heard me cussing because I went over there to start cleaning up and condensing, and I was like, mother effer, and I was yelling because I was mad. Nobody was in the store. He was here 10 minutes late because we had to count all these books, and I'm going to come back to that note sometimes too, which I think will be good for other people. But he called
several people around
first
town.
He called the next day and asked if we shipped.
Right.
And Scott answered the phone and told him, no, we don't do any shipping.
Right.
And then what we think he was doing was looking at people that interacted on our page that were local and started messaging them and asking them. There was one box that he didn't get to.
Or like one or two.
Two, right. And he was like, I need somebody to go through the last box, and then, I'll pay you to ship it to me.
But he wanted somebody to stand there.
FaceTime him.
And FaceTime him and flip through the box so he could look through it. Right. And we found this out because one of our friends called the store and said,
close friend of the shop.
Yeah. Hey, this guy is trying to get me to come do this thing or help him find somebody that will. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
And it's for quarter books?
Yeah. And I was just so taken aback that, number one, they'd already made that trip that they made to come buy quarter books.
Yeah.
But then to get that crazy about seeing those last boxes. And then he called back again here to the shop.
This time you answered the phone.
Yeah. Well, and he found somebody, I guess, that was oddly willing to come FaceTime him. And number one, what he didn't understand is we'd already resituated all of those boxes.
We had to condense,
And so whatever he didn't look at, there was no way to track that.
No.
But number two, we already decided no more soup for you.
Right.
You're done here.
No soup for you. 3 years.
Yes. No more StL comics for you. So I stepped outside with the phone. I didn't sit up here at the desk. I went outside and I gave it to him. I mean, I didn't curse at him or anything, I don't think.
Well, and the way you proposed it to me was like, look, this isn't just for us, but you shouldn't be treating any kind of
you need
shop
to
like
re-examine how you are to other people's merchandise.
And the ironic part is when they walked in the door, I think I was in the bathroom. And he said
to me,
I'm going to make a mess. And we just kind of took it as sarcasm.
Why wouldn't we think that's a joke?
You're just going to tell me you're an awful person up front. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Maybe that's how they do it down there.
Well, maybe this is how he is everywhere he goes, but I guess we're maybe the first ones that stood up to him and said, oh, hell no.
And I think that's a big thing. A lot of shops will just tolerate crap if you're spending money. And,
Yeah, but you're also losing money.
You're costing me money.
Yeah.
You're costing me money. Oh, man. See, during that conversation, there were two things that I was like, oh, these are going to be great. These are, like, there were 2 points. They're gone. I forgot them. Totally forgot them. So, I mean, that's one thing. Just people doing that. Oh, well, that was a thing. Why? I don't understand. So many collectors, they will go through these bargain boxes, and I'll see them. They'll pull a short box, a long box, and then they get their phone out and start looking at what they need and putting the majority of it back. Like somebody's going to steal it out from under them or something. Like, just do it while you're doing it,
Right.
And here we go. There's the other point. I don't think that when it comes to closing at a shop like this, that people understand, like, especially on our long days where we're here till 7 p.m.
Well, I've been here since 9:30 in the morning.
Right. We've been here for 9.5, 10 hours. There's some days that both of us will even get in earlier than that.
Right.
And we'll be here a long time. And they think it's like, no, you can wait on me to check out. I'll check out when I'm ready. Dude. And that started to get out of hand about a year or two ago.
Yeah.
And that was where I just started shutting lights off. I shut off the TV.
I walk around and tell them, 10-minute warning.
We always give a warning.
We want you checked out so we can go home.
I tell them, in 10 minutes, I'm locking the door. Oh, all right. So then we're going to move on. What are we looking like time-wise over there?
Oh, we're pert near.
Okay, so here's a subject I wanted to talk about. In 6 years of the shop, and even before that when I was a show dealer, I would get asked, and we really don't get asked much anymore, but like, would I do things on consignment? Would I take a collection? Now, I'm not going to say that if somebody brought me the right blue chip key or handful of keys, then I'm not going to take those on consignment. We'll do that. We'll do that, for certain stuff. But we've seen, and I don't understand, there's a lot of shops that do it. They take consignment. And I'm not going to knock anybody for making that decision. That's their decision. That's what they want. I'm going to talk about why we don't. One is I can afford to buy your collection outright. Mm-hmm. I would rather. Mm-hmm. Two, percentages can get weird with that, especially if I got to rebag your collection. Mm-hmm. I got to price it. Mm-hmm. I got to count all the pages. I got to market it. I got to sell it. And lot of
we have to keep track of it's their stuff versus our stuff.
That's
where are we going to put it
with our POS system, our point of sale. That's easy to do. There is a way to do that, but we're going to have to put labor in up front, because I don't care if it's consignment or not. I'm going to make sure every page is there. There's no coupons cut out. Right. There's not a pop staple on a centerfold or anything like that. We're going to put the labor into it, and then we're going to make it presentable with new bags and boards and all that stuff. And I'm not doing that for 20 to 35%. You might as well take it to eBay, man, and mm-hmm. eat the 20% yourself. Mm-hmm. It's just not worth it for me.
Right.
We stay away from it. And again, I just would rather buy it out, because then I think in a lot of cases what happens, like years ago I did some consignment, and here's what happened. I sold all the good stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I was stuck dragging around mm-hmm. the bulk, the basic stuff. Mm-hmm. And eventually I did with the seller, just make an agreement. But when a collection walks in like that, that's the other problem, is like, if it's a large collection, that is where it would get tricky. In our system, it's easy. But we then have to mark every book that it's on consignment so that it stays together. Mm-hmm. We're not condensing, their $1, $2, and $5 bulk stuff in with ours and getting lost and trying to figure out exactly how much there is. And the other problem with consignment, it's the same thing as like we've discussed trying to buy. You and I may not agree what that book's worth. Right. And I'm not going to put overpriced stuff on consignment and have people think that I'm just overpricing stuff. Mm-hmm. You want that, go open a booth at an antique mall, or like I said, go to eBay. That's it. Yeah.
We had a guy this morning that wanted $2,000 for $500 worth of books.
Oh yeah, that's it. So yeah.
And I mean, it's a perfect example of what you think retail is versus what we know retail is, because we do this 7 days a week.
So this guy called yesterday and then showed up first thing this morning, and he probably had the equivalent of about 8 or 9 long boxes and 10 nothing burger slabs. And we're going through it, and James asks him when he gets here and they start loading it in the shop, well, where are you looking? I'm going to start the negotiation at $2,000. I went through 3 short boxes and I was like, unless something's hidden in here that I'm not seeing, he's way off. So I did my due diligence. I went through every box, and when I told him, I said, I'm not going to get to your $2,000. He said, well, there's, over 1,400 books there. I think $1 a book is more than fair. And I said, not when half of this is going to end up in my 50-cent quarter stuff. Mm-hmm. I can't pay $1 a book. There was no major key, not even small keys.
Well, we can't pay $1 a book if we're selling it for $1.
Right, exactly. I mean, that was kind of the case. Like 30-40% of it was going to get stripped and go in the 2 for $1. Another 30 to 40% was dollars, and the rest of it was $2 and $5 stuff mostly. There was a sprinkling of maybe some 10s and 20s. Mm-hmm. But every run, it almost appeared like he set up somewhere or a yard sale or went to a show and sold some of it. And somebody plucked him clean of everything worth $20 and more. Like the Venom run was all there except for the first 2 appearances of Null. What's the later one with the pit bull looking dog on the cover. That's another first appearance of something happening. Or anyway, like all of this stuff was gone, and there was runs of stuff we've talked about, like 52, Batman Legends of the Dark Knight.
Rebirth, anything.
Rebirth, we can't sell that stuff for 50 cents hardly sometimes. We get lucky every once in a while, and when we dump out a box and they're like, oh my God, there's a whole run of this here, they'll buy it all. That's 1 out of 100, you know. So I told them, and this is where I'm at, and it's kind of my approach on a lot of stuff now, when people are selling. Like, well, what are you hoping to get? When you say $2,000, and in my head, I'm thinking we're going to be about $500-600. And today, in all honesty, because of some of the variants he had and stuff like that, again, $5 and $10 books, I think I got to $750 was the number I had in my head that I was ready to pay for this. And I just told him, I don't want to make you an offer. You know, we're too far apart. My exact words were, I don't want to upset or offend you with what you think is a lowball offer, because we have different ideas of what this is worth. And, you know, it just didn't work out. And he was like, so you can't even get to $1,000? And I said, nope. And he said, have a good day. And it just like took our carts that the comics were on and just started walking out the door. And I'm like, whoa. I'm going to help you get it back in your car and get it out to the parking lot. But
he didn't want it.
Yeah. I totally envisioned, if I would have let him, he would have left our 2 carts sitting in a parking spot next to his car and just drove off, you know. And nobody is going to give him the money he's asking for that stuff. And it's hard. And then that goes to a phone call that I got yesterday for, was that 79, the first Star Trek movie came out? 78, 79?
Something like that.
Guy calls up and he's like, I got an original Star Trek poster. He said 77, and right away I was like, that's too early. But he goes, I'm seeing it for as low as $750 and as high as $2,300. And I'm like, that's a $60 to $90 poster all day long, unless he had something weird that I'm not familiar with. But
autographs.
He did not mention any autographs. Now that could have changed the thing, you know,
right?
But you know, he was like, I've seen folded ones go for $750, and then I've seen rougher, you know, rolled ones unfolded go for $2,300. Dude, I'm looking at eBay as we're talking on my phone, and I'm like, yeah. Instead of like trying to educate or correct the guy, because so many people get offended by that stuff, I just said,
we're not
for us.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that we sold multiples of them. And I'm pretty sure there were only 2 posters for that first movie. There was your standard 1-sheet big poster, and then there was the
lobby card.
Yeah, the tall, skinny poster. And, you know, what, like 12 or 16 inches by 3 foot, something like that. And there was no way. There was no way we were getting there. So sometimes you just have to kind of respectfully bow out before the situation gets bad.
Well, and some people take that the wrong way too. When you go through all their stuff, and you know, I'm going to pass. I'm not going to make an offer on this.
Oh well, another call I got a few days back was a guy who was like, "You guys buy toys and figures?" And I said, "Yeah, we sure do. What do you got?" Bunch of starting lineup, and I was like, you know, like it's not even worth. I mean, I'm essentially like, unless you're bringing me Gretzky's and Jordans and, you know, stuff like that, I'm not interested, because we can't move them. Like we have tubs of them priced for like $2 a piece, and they don't move. Now our Jordans that we filled, you know, a little section in a case
we
from,
sold a couple.
They're all gone.
Are they gone?
They're all gone. We bought 8 from one guy, 6 or 8. I think he had every one they made. We sold them all. It took a year, but we sold them all. I just don't want to. And he got mad. Like, and now some of that could be I might have been the 20th shop.
That was exactly my thought. Is he's been told no in such great repetition.
Yeah.
And you know, we never know what's going on in their head or any of that. But you know,
right. And it was just one of the things. I mean, I started it off. I was like, we don't do anything sports. Not even these starting lineup figures. And I'm like, no, I'm not really interested in them. I didn't even say we're not interested. I just said, no, we don't do anything with those. And he just got so mad. And it was like, that happened again. We talked about a collection I bought in Colombia a couple months back. And with it came, 8 graded baseball cards? And like 1 hockey card, I think, 1 soccer card. Yeah. A couple things like that. Now, people all of a sudden see these 8 graded cards sitting in the case. Oh, you guys are dealing with sports cards now. I'll bring mine up. No. Unless they look like this. They're like this stuff, 60s stuff. Well, I don't want it, And the other day, that guy, and it was a guy, oh, yeah. He's been fun to deal with. A guy that's come in here a few times selling us stuff here recently. The deals always work out. But he had to ask me like 4 different times about bringing his baseball cards up. And then I got hockey and football, even less on those. I don't want the hockey and football cards. We don't want that. He's like, but you got them right here. We don't buy those, were part of a bulk deal. I bought an entire it was comic books, toys, video games, and that handful of cards.
And we didn't even know they were there.
Well, right? I did. I did. Yeah,
okay.
I did. I actually sat down and priced them. And usually I would have just said, we don't want these. I would have left them behind.
Yeah.
But they were graded, and they were true vintage stuff.
Right.
So I took the time to look them up, and I was like, I think because that is kind of what you and I have always talked about.
Oh,
like, if somebody says, would you guys look at my baseball cards?
Is it 1880 to 1970?
If they're pre-72, we're probably going to take a look at them.
Yeah.
We'd be interested because we know we can move that stuff. But even then, there's limitations. I'm not going to open a whole eBay store to start moving your collection. And, if you got 10 or 100, few hundred great cards, like good quality cards that we can sell for $5 to $100 and something, sure, I might take a look at those. But I don't want your 3,500 card box of 90s upper deck stuff.
So, 5,000 count box of 87 tops.
Yeah,
wood panel borders.
And then it amazes me that when we get into the sports cards, that people don't understand that the whole Lloyd era cards hold no value anymore.
It's junk wax.
McGuire rookie card, and nobody cares anymore. Nobody wants that stuff. We don't want his starting lineup figures either. It's just all trash now. Nobody wants it. And I don't know. I think I've complained enough this evening.
Yeah, we can save some for next time.
Yeah. So I think we're good. We will say thank you guys once again, and we will see you next week. Have a good night.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in. Now it's time for the obligatory ask that you go like, subscribe, and share so that we can keep doing this.